Your adopted daughter doesn't really need a college fund anyway, my mother-in-law Margaret announced during our weekly family dinner, casually dropping this bomb between bites of pot roast. I've transferred it to Tommy's account. He's my real grandchild, after all. I gripped my fork tightly, watching my 15-year-old daughter Lily's face crumble at her grandmother's cruel words. My name is Diana, and at 42, I never thought I'd be facing such blatant discrimination against my child from my own family. What do you mean you transferred it? I kept my voice steady, though inside I was seething. That account was in Lily's name. Margaret dabbed her mouth with a napkin, looking smugly satisfied. Well, as the primary account holder, I have the authority. Besides, Tommy's showing real promise in baseball. He might get a sports scholarship, but he'll need backup funds for a good university. I glanced at my husband James, expecting him to defend our daughter, but he sat there staring at his plate, avoiding eye contact. His silence spoke volumes. Tommy, my sister-in-law Patricia's 16-year-old son, smirked from across the table. Patricia beamed with pride, clearly complicit in this scheme. Mom's right, she chimed in. Tommy has real potential. Lily can always go to community college. Lily quietly excused herself from the table, but not before I saw tears streaming down her face. My heart broke for my daughter, who we'd adopted as a baby after years of fertility struggles. She'd always been treated differently by Margaret and Patricia, but this was a new low. The money in that account, I said carefully, included Lily's inheritance from my parents, plus everything we've saved since her adoption. Oh please, Margaret waved dismissively, your parents weren't her real grandparents anyway. Blood is thicker than water, Diana. Tommy is my actual grandson. I felt a strange calm settle over me as I watched my mother-in-law's self-satisfied expression. She had no idea what she just set in motion. What Margaret didn't know was that I'd been preparing for something like this for years. As a financial advisor, I'd seen too many families torn apart by money to be naive. The college fund she'd just emptied was actually a decoy account I'd set up when I first noticed her preferential treatment of Tommy. The real money, nearly $180,000, was safely tucked away in a separate account that Margaret knew nothing about. An account that would now serve a very different purpose. You're right, Margaret, I said, standing up. Blood is thicker than water. Thank you for making that so clear. I helped Lily pack an overnight bag, and we went to stay at my best friend Emma's house. That night, as Lily slept in Emma's guest room, I made some calls. First to my lawyer, then to my accountant, and finally to a realtor, the pieces of my plan falling into place with each conversation. James called repeatedly, leaving voicemails that ranged from confused to angry. Diana, you're overreacting. Mom was just trying to help Tommy. Come home so we can discuss this like adults. But I wasn't overreacting. I was finally seeing things clearly. For 15 years, I'd watched Margaret and Patricia chip away at my daughter's self-worth, always favoring Tommy, always making sure Lily knew she wasn't considered real family. The next morning, I dropped Lily at school and headed to my office. By lunch, I'd set up 3 new accounts and initiated the transfer of all my personal assets out of our joint accounts. Margaret had shown her hand, and now I would show mine. Mom, Lily said that evening, her voice small, are you and Dad getting divorced? I hugged my daughter close. I don't know, sweetheart, but I do know that you are my real daughter, my only daughter, and I will always protect you. What your grandmother did was wrong. But the money, she started. Don't worry about the money, I smiled, thinking of the decoy account Margaret had so triumphantly emptied. Sometimes people show you exactly who they are, and when they do, you should believe them. As I held my daughter, my phone buzzed with more messages from James and angry texts from Patricia, but I ignored them all. They had no idea what was coming next. Margaret thought she'd won by stealing what she believed was Lily's college fund. She was about to learn a very expensive lesson about what real family truly means. I kissed Lily's forehead and thought about the meeting I had scheduled with my lawyer for the next morning. Margaret had made her choice, and now I would make mine. The game she'd started was about to change dramatically, and I was playing for keeps. 3 weeks after Margaret's announcement, I sat in my lawyer's office reviewing the paperwork. The house I'd inherited from my parents, which James and I had been living in rent-free for 10 years, was now officially on the market. The decoy college fund Margaret had emptied contained exactly $25,000, enough to make her feel triumphant but not enough to cause real damage. Everything's in order, my lawyer confirmed. The proceeds from the house sale will go directly into Lily's new trust fund, which only you can access. And the rental agreement for your new apartment is finalized. James had been calling nonstop, alternating between anger and pleading. You can't sell your parents' house, he'd argued. Where are we supposed to live? We aren't living anywhere. I'd replied calmly. Lily and I are moving. You can stay with your mother since she's so good at managing everyone's money. The look on Margaret's face when she received the eviction notice was priceless. She'd shown up at my office, waving the paper dramatically. You can't do this. That house has been James's home for years. Actually, I can. My parents will left it to me, not to James. You taught me an important lesson about family property, Margaret. I'm just following your example. Patricia had tried to intervene, claiming I was being vindictive. Tommy needs a stable home environment for his baseball training. You're ruining his chances. I smiled sweetly. I'm sure your real mother can figure something out. The family dynamics shifted dramatically over those 3 weeks. James finally found his voice, but only to defend his mother. She was trying to help Tommy. You're taking this too personally. Too personally? I'd laughed. She stole from our daughter and called her fake family. How should I take that? Meanwhile, Lily was flourishing away from Margaret's constant criticism. We'd found a lovely apartment near her school, and she'd started therapy to process years of subtle discrimination from her grandmother. One evening, as we were packing boxes, Lily found an old photo album. Mom, look, she said, showing me a picture from her 5th birthday. In it, Margaret was openly doting on Tommy, while Lily sat alone with her untouched cake. I always thought something was wrong with me, Lily admitted. Why didn't they love me? I hugged her tight. The problem was never you, sweetheart. Some people are just too small-minded to see what's real and precious. The real estate agent called the next day. We have multiple offers on the house, all above asking price. I thought about Margaret's smug face when she'd announced stealing Lily's college fund. She thought she was punishing us, but she'd actually given me the push I needed to break free from their toxic influence. James showed up at the apartment that evening, looking defeated. Deanna, please, we can work this out. Mom said she'll apologize to Lily. An apology won't fix 15 years of discrimination, I replied. Did you know Lily cried herself to sleep every Christmas because Margaret gave Tommy expensive gifts while she got discount store items? Did you ever notice how Patricia always excluded her from family photos? He had the grace to look ashamed, but still defended his mother. She's old-fashioned. She doesn't understand adoption. No, James, she understands perfectly. She just chose cruelty. That night, I received a group text from Margaret. Family meeting tomorrow. Attendance mandatory. We need to discuss this ridiculous behavior. I replied with a screenshot of Lily's new college fund balance, now significantly larger than what Margaret had stolen. And the words, "Sorry, we have real plans." The next morning, Patricia called in tears. Mom's having anxiety attacks over losing the house. You have to stop this. Like you stopped her from stealing from my daughter? I asked. Funny how consequences work. As I hung up, Lily came into my room with a small smile. Mom, I got an A on my biology test. That's wonderful, sweetheart. See, no one can determine your worth but you. Looking at my daughter's proud face, I knew I'd made the right decision. Margaret had thought she was showing us our place in the family hierarchy. Instead, she'd shown us the way out. The house would sell, Lily's real college fund would grow, and we would build a new life without their toxic influence. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's simply ensuring that those who try to hurt you lose the power to do so. As I helped Lily hang photos in her new room, none featuring Margaret or Patricia, I smiled, thinking about the final phase of my plan. Margaret thought she'd won by stealing $25,000. She had no idea that her actions would end up costing her so much more. 6 months after Margaret's power play, I sat in my office reviewing the final paperwork. The house had sold for $200,000 above asking price, thanks to a bidding war. Every penny went into Lily's secure trust fund, which now held over $400,000 for her future. The irony wasn't lost on me. Margaret's attempt to deny Lily an education had actually guaranteed her a better one than Tommy would ever get. My phone buzzed with a familiar number, Margaret again. I let it go to voicemail, already knowing what it would be about. The family was in chaos, but not because of me. Mom, Lily called from the doorway of my home office. Aunt Emma's here for dinner. Emma, my best friend and now our neighbor in the new apartment building, had become more family to Lily than Margaret ever was. She came bearing news about the old neighborhood. You won't believe this, Emma said over dinner. Margaret and Patricia had to move into a small rental. Apparently, they'd been counting on keeping your house. Tommy's baseball dreams aren't looking so good either. They can't afford the private coaching anymore. I smiled, thinking about the series of events Margaret had unknowingly set in motion. Not only had she lost her cushy living arrangement, but her perfect grandson's future wasn't as secure as she thought. That's not even the best part, Emma continued. James finally grew a spine. He moved out of his mother's rental and got his own place. He's been asking around about family counseling. Too little, too late. While James had been finding his backbone, Lily and I had been building a new life. She joined the school's science club and was flourishing without the constant comparison to Tommy. Her therapist said she was finally developing healthy self-esteem. Later that evening, I found Lily looking at old family photos on her phone. Mom, look what Tommy posted, she said, showing me a bitter social media rant about how we'd ruined his life and future. Honey, you don't need to follow them anymore. I reminded her gently. I know, she smiled. I just wanted to see if Grandma learned anything, but she's still commenting about her real grandson this and that. Some people never change. The next morning, Margaret made one last attempt. She showed up at my office, looking significantly less polished than usual. Diana, please, she began. Tommy's travel team needs money for championships. It's his chance at a scholarship. Surely you can spare something from the house sale. I looked at the woman who had caused my daughter so much pain, who had never once apologized for her actions or words. Actually, Margaret, I can't. Every penny is in a sealed trust for my real daughter's education. Blood isn't thicker than water. Love is. You taught me that, remember. She left in tears, but I felt no guilt. Instead, I thought about the email I'd received that morning. Lily had been accepted into an advanced summer program at Stanford. The program she could now easily afford, thanks to her grandmother's greed backfiring spectacularly. That evening, James called. Deanna, can we talk? About Lily? There is no us anymore, James, I replied. But if you want to talk about being a better father to Lily, that's different. She has a science fair next week. You're welcome to come, but Margaret and Patricia aren't allowed. He agreed, finally seeming to understand the damage his silence had caused. As I helped Lily prepare her science fair project that weekend, I received one final text from Patricia. Mom's selling her jewelry to pay for Tommy's training. I hope you're happy with what you've done to this family. I showed the message to Lily, who looked up from her project with wise eyes. They still don't get it, do they, Mom? They did this to themselves. That's right, sweetheart, and you know what? Sometimes the best revenge is simply living well and letting karma do its work. A year after Margaret's failed attempt to steal Lily's future, we hosted a small celebration in our apartment. Lily had been accepted to 3 top universities, with her trust fund more than sufficient to cover any she chose. Tommy, meanwhile, had lost his spot on the baseball team due to declining grades and lack of private coaching. Margaret's real grandson would indeed be attending community college, exactly where she'd said Lily belonged. As we celebrated with Emma and our true friends, I thought about how Margaret's one cruel decision had completely backfired. She'd lost her home, her status, and her control over the family, all because she couldn't accept that love, not blood, makes a real family. Lily hugged me tight that night. Thank you, Mom, for always fighting for me. Always, sweetheart. I promised. You're my real daughter, my only daughter, and the best thing that ever happened to me. Some people are too blind to see what's real and precious, but that's their loss. Looking at my daughter's happy face, I knew that sometimes losing a toxic family is actually the biggest win of all.